Final Fantasy VII Rebirth covers a big story with a wide cast of characters, but there are two in particular who could benefit from receiving an intermission DLC treatment. FF7 Remake introduced the idea of filling in story gaps with a DLC through the Yuffie-focused intermission, which debuted the new version of the classic character and sent her on a mission to infiltrate Shinra. Although it's not 100% necessary to play through the side chapter before FF7 Rebirth, it adds important context for her character and teases some threads that Rebirth follows. Fans of Yuffie would doubtless love to return to the impetuous ninja for another interlude, but it seems more likely that further pieces of Yuffie's story will be reserved for the next game. FF7 Rebirth sets up big changes to her homeland of Wutai, and exploring that location is more than a DLC could likely wrangle. Looking elsewhere in the party, however, reveals options that could prove just as appealing and potentially even improve on what Intermission brought to the table. Cid and Vincent deserve Final Fantasy VII Rebirth DLC. The FF7 Rebirth party isn't treated equally. Cid Highwind and Vincent Valentine are both memorable FF7 characters who join the cast in FF7 Rebirth, but neither of them get quite the same spotlight in the game as the proper party members do. Cid becomes the party's designated fairy, while Vincent mostly stands around with crossed arms at the party's various destinations, but neither of them become playable within the scope of this particular adventure. This sidelining also leaves both of them with less narrative exploration, and their interesting backstories haven't yet been directly covered. FF7 Rebirth already introduces battle mechanics for Cait Sith and Red 13, so it makes sense that Cid and Vincent are having to wait their turn. Their status on the fringe of the game can be frustrating, however, and the deliberate avoidance of some key narrative elements surrounding the characters leaves them feeling a bit awkwardly appended. An intermission DLC could be the perfect way to address this situation for either character, and it would be the ultimate silver lining of the situation. How FF7 Rebirth Cid and Vincent DLC could work. Cid and Vincent have interesting FF7 side stories. Vincent Valentine aboard the tiny Bronco in FF7 Rebirth. The status of Cid's backstory in FF7 Rebirth is currently unclear, as the party meets him in a completely different manner than the original game's encounter in Rocket Town. The first telling of the story introduced his character flaws off the bat and portrayed him clearly as a broken man, concepts that FF7 Rebirth doesn't address head-on. Rocket Town may appear for the first time in the next game and bring his backstory with it, but this approach would be a substantially late introduction. FF7 Rebirth DLC doesn't necessarily offer the perfect solution to the problem, but it would at least give him time to build some of the character arc from his past failing to his ultimate narrative fulfillment in the next game. Diving into the past to relive the original events of the Shinra space program would be one way to do this, but giving him a more recent adventure and incorporating flashbacks might also do the trick. Vincent got a bigger spotlight than Cid in the past with Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII, a third-person shooter for the PS2 that picks up after the events of FF7 and Explored and faces Vincent off against a secret organization known as Deep Ground. The game failed to garner much critical acclaim, however, and its mixed reception has left it as something of a black sheep in the overall compilation of Final Fantasy VII franchise.